Welcome everybody to our second installation of our Citispell uh, summer series, our virtual summer lecture here from the Museum of the Southern Jewish Experience. My name is Lizzie Meister, and I'm the public programs manager here at our museum located in New Orleans. And I am thrilled to welcome you all here today. Um, this is our Citispell is our virtual summer lecture series, which is a free lecture series that we can enjoy from the comfort of our AC homes um, or somewhere cool as we explore three lesser known Jewish stories and historical figures. Um, this is the second of our three-part lecture series. Last week, we talked about Jews in comedy, Southern Jews in comedy. That lecture is now up on our YouTube website or YouTube. And next week at 6 Central, Thursday, the 6th, we will be joined by Jacob Morrow Spitzer, a scholar on Southern Jewish mayors. So more information can be found at our website. Today, we're joined by Dani Rotstein, and he will be talking about Xueta Island, his film. As part of this lecture series, um, you we are virtually screening this um, film, and you can get access to that screener, which is available now through August 3rd, Monday, August 3rd, on our website. So go to public programs and trust me, you're going to want to see this if you haven't already. Um, yeah. Sauce little things about Zoom etiquette. We ask that everybody stays muted for the presentation. At the end, we'll have an opportunity to ask them questions, and then we'll do some hand raising, whether that's a virtual hand or you take yourself off onto video. You can raise your physical hand and we'll call on you. Feel free to pop your questions in the chat as they come up. Without further ado, let's get started. Today we're going to be hearing about Xueta Island, which is a documentary exploring Inquisition history, Jewish revival, and identity in Mallorca, Spain. And we're joined by Dani Rotstein, who moved to New Jersey, to the island of Mallorca in 2014. And there he learned about the taboo history of Xuetas on the island, and then 2018 founded Limud Mallorca, which has run over 50 successful events. He co-produced this documentary in 2019, and it's been making in its way through international film festivals through 2022. I'd like to introduce Dani.
Thank you so much, Lizzie. It's so great to be here. Thank you, everyone at the Museum of Southern Jewish Experience. Really excited to be presenting our film that we made, just a couple years ago, and still taking shape and getting across to more and more people. Just want to make sure, can everyone just write in the chat their name, just so I know everyone that's here. And if you don't mind writing no, if everyone just write no if you have not seen the film yet, because that'll help me understand who has seen it, who has not seen it, and allow us to have a more better experience for this chat. Okay, so a couple people have not seen the film yet. Wonderful. So I'll get to share a trailer so you can see a little bit about what the film is about. And I'm also going to be speaking about that, of course, over the next 45 minutes or so. But I really love to take questions. So when questions come up, please don't think, oh, I'll get to that later. Write it in the chat. I love when questions come up right away as I'm speaking, teaching. Questions come up, and then we'll go back to that in the Q&A. So without further ado, just to give a little bit of introductions, my name is Dani Rotstein. I was, as Lizzie said, born in New Jersey. My father's from Netanya in Israel. My mother is from Westchester, New York, and she actually is the daughter of two, my grandparents were both born in Germany and escaped the Nazis and made it out to United States. My grandmother was hiding in France for 7 years, actually, during the war, and ended up in Marseille with her parents, and then got on a boat and left Marseille, France, to get to Ellis Island, to New York. And my grandfather actually left very late. He was 14 years old in 1941 when he left Germany with his sister and his mom. And actually, they took a train to San Sebastian, which is in northern Spain. And then they took a train from San Sebastian to Barcelona and got on a boat from Barcelona. And actually, I met my wife, who is from Barcelona. I met her when I was living in Mallorca. We have our son, who's Oren. His name is Oren, 7 years old, and now we live once again in Barcelona. So it's like a kind of bit of a full circle. And just for you to get an idea of the type of grandparents that I grew up with, very, I guess let's call it stereotypically Jewish grandparents. They're always bickering, whatnot. When I called home just 3 weeks after I moved to Spain, and they said, when are you going to settle down? When are you going to stop all this traveling? Have you met anyone yet? I'm like, guys, I just got here. But actually, since you're asking, I met a really cool woman. Her name is Carla. She's not Jewish. She's from Barcelona. Let's see how it goes. My grandfather said, Barcelona? Oh, that's my most favorite city in the world. And then you hear my grandma in the background saying, Harry, what are you talking about? You were there for 2 hours. Just like very, very, stereotypical grandparents that I have. My grandfather's since passed, unfortunately, a couple of years ago. My grandmother's still with us, 94 years old. So we're very, very lucky to be with her still. And so this is it. This is about where people come from and their roots, their origins, right? And I'm very clearly Ashkenazi Jewish from New Jersey. Like that's who I am. It's part of my identity. And I went to a place called Wesleyan University. Some of you might have heard about it in Connecticut. I graduated in 2002, and I actually went to school with someone named Lin-Manuel Miranda, you might have heard of. We actually were in the same graduating class. He's incredibly talented, as many of us know. And I studied abroad when I was at Wesleyan, and I studied in Madrid. So Madrid is when I kind of discovered, for me, what was Spain and Sephardic Jewish history and Inquisition. I was fascinated because everywhere I went, almost in like I think there's now 100 towns that can say they have Jewish quarters or remnants of where the Jews used to live. There's a Jewish quarter network that's about 20 cities where they actually have churches that used to be synagogue, or they've discovered a mikvah. I mean, the incredible amount of archaeology that's there is amazing. But I always felt like it was something from the past, something like from, like ancient medieval times. Like no one had ever met anyone Jewish before. In fact, I'll never forget, I was living with a woman who's a widower with her two daughters who didn't speak any English, and she was cooking food. I was the college student living there in Madrid. And she said, is there anything that you don't eat? And I said, well, actually, I'm Jewish, so I don't eat any pork. And she goes, oh, yes, the Jews. I know something about that. Oh, yes. Okay, no pork, no problem. But you do eat ham, right? And I was like, no, I also don't eat ham. And so it was like this wide opening for me to see that in Spain, ham is like sacred, it's like cows in India. Like they have ham hanging everywhere. Like they have restaurants called Museum of Jamon. And it's actually, could everyone just write in the chat if you've been to Spain? Right? Yes, if you've been to Spain. I've always liked to see who's been to Spain before. And this is like what I learned when I went to Spain, that there's this focus on jamon, and it's very good jamon from what I'm told. And so I always thought that this was such a fascinating history, that it was so embedded and integrated into the society, but very few people have met someone Jewish or even knew anything about what being Jewish was like. So fast forward, I lived in Miami for many years, then New Jersey. I became a producer on TV commercials, and I got a job in Mallorca, which is what you see behind me. This is the cathedral right here. In fact, let me take a quick break, and I like to be as interactive as possible. And for those, right, yes, in the chat, if you've been to Mallorca, I always like to see who's been to the island of Mallorca. Here you have it right here. There's four islands of the Balearic Islands. It's in between mainland Spain and Italy. So if we zoom in, everyone can see that? Just nod. I can see a couple of people on the cameras here. Here you have Menorca on the top right. You have Ibiza on the bottom left, Formentera, another island that you have to go to Ibiza to take a ferry to. There's no airport there. And then here you have Mallorca. City walls from 900 to 1800s, almost 1,000 years of those city walls still standing there. Pretty incredible. And when you zoom in even further, you have, oh, let me clear that for everyone. Um, when you zoom in even further, you have this incredible cathedral that is called the Cathedral by the Sea. That's what's right behind me in the picture here, and that's what we're looking at right now. This was started to be built in the year 1300, and it wasn't finished, excuse me, until 1600. So 300 years to build this incredible cathedral. It's called Cathedral on the Sea because, as you can see, it's right on the waters. And if you zoom in, take a look at this, and you see this big rose window. Does everyone see the symbol or the geometric shape, let's call it? You will hopefully see the Magen David, the Star of David. Oh, someone said they just lost sound. Hopefully it's back. Lizzie, thumbs up. Can you hear me? Everyone can hear me? Yeah.
We can hear you,
Um,
but I think your shared screen might have dropped.
oh, okay. Let's try this again. And I will. Can everyone see the shared screen now? Yes? No? Maybe so? Okay, so this is the Star of David. Okay, now there's a lot of theory and rumors and hearsay that go along with this. People think that, oh, because the Jews were converted and then they helped pay for this cathedral, that they put the Star of David in there. I don't believe that. The Star of David is a symbol like any other symbol for many, many centuries. Many religions and faiths use this as a symbol. It was actually the menorah, the candelabra of seven arms that would represent the Jewish people for a long time. So. Enough about that. I wanted just to show you a little bit of where Mallorca is on the map. And I got a job as a TV producer in Mallorca. I didn't know anyone there. This is back in 2014. I thought I was going to be the only Jew on the island. Well, what happened? I was at work one day. It came up that my father's from Israel. And suddenly this coworker said, "Oh, are you Jewish?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, you should go to the synagogue here." And I said, "Synagogue? I love archaeological digging. Where can I find these ruins that you speak of?" And he's like, "No, an actual synagogue that you can go into. I think you guys go on Friday nights." I go, "Yes, you know quite a little bit about Judaism. This is fascinating." So he became my good friend, Jacobo, Jacob, not with Xueta roots, not with Jewish roots. And we actually went online. We couldn't find the synagogue. So after making a couple phone calls, turns out it was only 5 minutes from where I was renting an apartment. I walked over there. I had already passed it like 10 times within the first week that I'd been there. And it was a Friday night. I knocked on the door. The door opened slowly. I walk in. It wasn't necessarily a warm, welcoming vibe. I got this like kind of looks like, who's the new guy and how'd he find us? And I went in and I saw that there was a light mechitza, a light divider separating men and women. It's an Orthodox synagogue. Some trees, some bushes, fake plants separated the space. There was no rabbi, no chazan, no cantor, just a volunteer who was leading the service. And I'll never forget that at one point he turned to the men's section, he counted in his head, and he said, "I'm so sorry, we have to skip the Kaddish tonight. We don't have a minyan. We don't have 10 Jewish men, in the Orthodox stream of Judaism." And I was very confused because I counted in the men's section 14 men. And I thought to myself, it's very odd. I'm pretty sure the number is 10 globally. It doesn't change by number, it change by country you're in. And I asked the gentleman next to me, "Excuse me, why are we skipping? We have a minute. We have 14 men here." And he said to me as if I was the off one. And he said, "Well, that's obvious. Some of these men are not Jewish. They must be Chueta." And that was the first time that I heard this word Chueta. So raise your hand if you, before seeing this film, if you had heard or seen the word Chueta before. I always like to see if anyone had heard of it before one of my lectures or the film. Nope. Okay. This is exactly the point. I've been studying this for so long. My mother is a Jewish educator with the Reform School in New York. She had never heard about it. So many people had not heard the story before. Chueta means Catholic descendants of the Jewish conversos, only from Mallorca Island. They're only from Mallorca. They're not from Barcelona or from Ibiza. They're only from Mallorca. And these are 15 family names that have been marrying within the same families for almost 400 years on this island in the Mediterranean because nobody wanted to marry them because they were bad, because they were the other. They came from heretics. They came from bad people. Their names were hanging on a church for, yeah, since 1435 till 1834. I mean, we're talking about 400 years. Everyone in Mallorca knows these names. It's like Rotstein, like my last name, Spielberg, all of these Jewish sounding last names in the United States. Well, these are the same names in Mallorca. And because if you have this last name, you are not, you can't marry certain people. I mean, now it's gone down, that the taboo no longer exists. But around the 1930s, 1940s is when they first started having some Xuetas marrying people from outside of Mallorca. So I want to take a quick break and just show the trailer so those who haven't seen the film yet can get excited about it. And those who have seen the film can kind of rejig their memories of when they were watching it. And again, the more questions I get, the better I can respond and make this a more powerful experience for everyone. So without further ado, here's the trailer of our film, Xueta Island, which came out just a few years ago, but we're still obviously sharing it. And someone did ask about educational purposes, and yes, absolutely, we would love to share this with more and more people. So here we go. This is going to be the trailer for our documentary film.
To me, it was always something of the past, of the history of the museum, going through Jewish quarters. Oh, if these stones could talk, if these walls could talk. And then I meet people who are Xueta.
Venga, va. Pues mi madre misma nos recordó y nos dijo a todos los 6 hermanos, no olvidéis que sois judíos. ¿Qué pasa aquí? Yo me quedé un poco sorprendido.
Hi ha una història de 600 anys, hi ha marginacions, hi ha execucions, hi ha sang. Però i ara què passa? No ens hem extingit, som unes persones vives.
Ardían sus carnes como un tizón y reventado por medio se le cayeron las entrañas como a Judas.
Queda muy poca cosa, es decir, el problema que tenemos aquí es un poco eso, que nos faltan muchos vestigios.
So this is the site of an old synagogue, somewhere here. A mikveh was perhaps recently discovered.
Il·lumina estas escaleras.
El tema chueta es un tabú. ¿Ves? Porque estoy hablando de los chuetas. No quiere que hablemos de eso.
These people have been forced to marry within themselves to the point that a rabbi in Israel says that they're Jewish. That's huge.
Lo que pretendíamos era constituir una comunidad más fuerte, no constituir 2 comunidades, la comunidad chueta y la comunidad judía.
Si han pasado por todo las normas que rigen la conversión de un judío, que no vengan a decirme que tú no eres judío.
Eres judío simplemente porque tus padres, tus antepasados fueron judíos. Perdón, no es así.
Y realmente poco a poco se va construyendo este retorno.
Para hacer un retorno, primero tienes que haber ido.
So there you have it. That's their trailer. For those who haven't seen it yet, the film is still with the link provided by the Museum of Southern Jewish Experience that we're here today. Thank you again, till August 3rd. So you still have some time to access that film. So really, really excited for you all to see it. And so here we are with this word Xueta that not a lot of people had heard of, as we just learned about before. So I'll share my PowerPoint. This is actually... thumbs up, Lizzie. Everyone can see the PowerPoint. Okay, yep. So this is a yarmulke from our wedding. We actually got married in Mallorca. Carla, who would later eventually convert to Judaism. I told her, look, you don't have to convert. That's your own thing. But if we raise children, I really want to raise them Jewish. And so we became actually leaders of the Jewish community in Mallorca. And we started doing Shabbat dinners and hosting holidays and just be very involved, that she on her, eventually decided to convert. So this is our yarmulke. This is the Mallorca with the Jewish star. And here's that word, els Xuetes. Now it's Mallorquin, which is a version of Catalan, what they speak in Catalunya, what they speak in Barcelona, which is a completely different language than Spanish, right? Spanish, Catalan, 2 separate languages. Catalan and Mallorquin, same language, just different dialects. I like to say it's like American English and British English. So the Xuetas, this word, where does it come from? So there's a couple theories. One is that it could come from French. The word for dog is chien, Xueta, chien. Again, it's an insult. It's derogatory, okay? It's like the word marrano. Can people put in the chat if you've heard the word marrano before? I think a number of people have. Ina, I'm not sure, sorry, how to pronounce your name, but I see you there raising your hand. So marrano is also a derogatory term. It means like you dirty, you filthy animal, you pig, you swine. So Marrano, which I learned in New Jersey Hebrew school, meant secret Jew, meant, a Christian with Jewish roots was a Marrano. But today, walking around, our neighborhood, we adopted a dog named Taco. And when we first went around, he started eating something gross on the floor. And Carla, my wife, said, "Hey, you little Marrano." And I said, "Why are you calling our dog a secret Jew?" I was very confused. And that's when she explained to me, no, Marrano means, you filthy animal, you're disgusting. And so it blew my mind. So Marrano is Spanish and Xueta is Catalan, very important. Now, it could also mean chouette, again, French for a female owl, a dark, ominous bird that you don't trust, similar to the Xuetas. They were never trusted in this island of Mallorca for hundreds of years. And sometimes they tried to, because what people don't realize is that the Xuetas were some of the most overtly Catholic people you ever would meet, because they were always trying to prove how Catholic they were to the rest of the Catholic society, but nobody believed them. So this whole idea about where the word comes from in French, I don't really go for, because we don't speak French in Mallorca. We speak Mallorquin, which is Catalan. So I believe the second option is more online, which xuya means bacon or pork. Now you see this photo of people cooking outside their homes. This is a holiday that we do now every January in Palma. It's San Sebastian. It's the main holiday of the city of Palma. They do this. They bring out grills 2 days in a row, and they cook all this food. Now they're cooking more vegetables and chicken, but I believe a long time ago they would only cook bacon or pork. And I think this may have a connection to the Xuetas, which I've heard rumors that they would cook bacon or pork outside their home in public as a public act to show, look, leave me alone. I might have Jewish roots, but I'm not Jewish anymore. I'm not keeping kosher. Now, maybe some of these Xueta families did this outside their home to not have any bacon or pork inside their home as a way of keeping some of the Jewish traditions. I don't really believe many did that. I think it was maybe a small portion. Most Xuetas, again, were trying to assimilate, trying to fit in with the rest of society. But xuya, Xueta, okay, there's a direct, clear link there. And Jueu, J-U-E-U, Jueu, is how you say Jew in Catalan. And Jueto is you little Jew, okay? Again, diminutive, despective, derogatory. Jueto and Chueto sounds very similar. So Xueta could mean a mix of things like, you little Jew, you cook bacon and pork, but we know you have Jewish roots. We don't trust you. And henceforth, we won't let any of our children marry any of you with one of these famous 15 last names. So we're going to learn about these last names in a little bit, but I do want to tell you a little bit more about these different terms that are very important. So we have 3 major periods of Jewish history in Mallorca. I'm going to actually explain to you in a film, a little short clip I made inside the local Jewish Interpretation Center. Would everyone like that? Like go on a little tour, a little virtual tour and see what we have in Palma? So we're going to do that right now. We are going to learn about the medieval roots of the Jews, when they came to the island, how long they've been living there. And then we're going to learn about what happened in 1435, this terrible mass conversion where all the Jews were forcibly converted in this one church. We're going to see that church on this virtual tour today. And that's when you see the word crypto Jew. Now, that's not a Jew who works in cryptocurrency. There's many of that today. This is crypto Jews, Jews who are Christian on the outside, but secretly practicing Judaism on the inside. And you could see crypto Jewish roots all over Latin America today, in Puerto Rico, in New Mexico, in Brazil, in Ecuador, in the country of Mexico, in Colombia, in Peru, wherever there was the Inquisition, you knew you had crypto Jews, secret Jews. And actually part of my thesis, my focus right now is actually exploring communities that are returning to Judaism in all of these countries I just mentioned. In fact, we're taking a tour to Puerto Rico in March. We're going to do Purim in Puerto Rico. If anyone's interested in traveling along with me, by all means, I can send you those details. And this October, we're doing the same thing in Albuquerque and Santa Fe in New Mexico, meeting those families who've been doing Jewish things, not knowing that they were Jewish things. It's fascinating, in my opinion, to see how much of a legacy Jewish spirit and Jewish traditions can continue. So we also call them conversos. We also call them new Christians because they just became Christians. So new Christians would not mesh with old Christians. There was always this separation. And that was for 250 years, as you can see on the infographic I have. In Hebrew, we say b'nei anusim. B'nei, descendants, children of, anusim, those who were forced, those who were raped, actually. Anusim is a very loaded word in Hebrew. So anusim is the Hebrew way to say those who were forcibly converted. And then it wasn't until after 1691, we'll also see a little clip of what happened in that year. That's when we see this new derogatory term of people called Xuetas. They're specific people, 15 families that always married within the same group. They lived on certain streets. One of them was Segel Street, the stamp collector street. And then they were also just called people of the street. They don't even get a neighborhood. They're just of the street. And because they always were forced to live in this one certain area. So I thought what would be fun is to actually come outside this, lecture hall, if you will, and go to the actual Jewish quarter behind me. We're going to hop on this virtual tour bus and go explore this Jewish Interpretation Center that was unfortunately closed for a number of years, and I understand it's just opening up again in Palma. So here we are on the secret Jewish tour, and we're going to learn about the medieval roots of Mallorca. 1 second. And here we are. So not the one I'm looking for. Okay, let's see, medieval. Okay, here we are. Yeah, great. Tell me if you can hear and see.
Years after the birth of Christ, Second Temple is destroyed, and that's when the second diaspora, the people, Jews leaving Israel, was created. So we believe that there are Jews living here since after that time. A lot of Jews came as slaves with Romans, and the Romans, were one of the first people to settle in Mallorca. And we know that there's been Jews here because we found this piece. It's a lamp with a menorah on it, and they say that it dates back to the 4th century or 5th century. And we also know because there's a famous letter, it's amazing that documents have been preserved, by the Bishop Severus, who talks about wanting to convert the Jewish community, not of Mallorca, but of Menorca. And this was in the year 418, Common Era, okay? So we know that there's a Jewish community living in Menorca, so we can assume maybe that if there's Jews living in Menorca, perhaps there's Jews living in Mallorca as well. So we start seeing Jewish presence in the 400s, okay? There's not a lot of information, but basically we baleave that there's been Jews in Mallorca, in the Balearic Islands, through lots of different people conquering the islands, right? The Almohads, the Visigoths, the Vandals, and the Moros, okay? The Moros from North Africa were in control of Mallorca. They called it Medina Mallorca, from around the 900s to 1229. 1229 is an important year because it's when Jaime I comes, and he comes from Aragon and he conquers Mallorca, okay? And they believe that he brought many Jews with him from the mainland. They were helping to finance a lot of his conquest. And we know that there were Jews living quite happily under Muslim rule because it's been documented that when he came, there were Jews already waiting for him. So the Jews that were already living here and the Jews that came from mainland came, and they began with these Jewish quarters, which is amazing to see that right where the cathedral is, that actually used to be a mosque, okay, so they built the cathedral on top of the mosque, and right in front of the cathedral is the Palace of Al-Mudaina. They believe that's the first Jewish quarter of Mallorca. That's where the Jews lived when they were under Muslim rule. When Jaime I came, he moved the Jewish quarter to what's known as the Cai Menor, the small Jewish quarter, which is around Segel, Jaime II, and San Bartholomew Street, okay? Right where the Barcelona football store is, right in the middle, and the Banco de España, very close to Plaza Mayor. This is incredible that they built this Jewish quarter, and Jews from all over the Mediterranean started to come to Mallorca, from Alexandria, from Marseille, from all over. Why? Why would Jews come to Mallorca in this time? Yeah, trade, exactly. If you look at Mallorca on the map, it's perfectly located for all of trade routes, all of movements, because at that time, that is the world for those people. They hadn't discovered, Christopher Columbus is in 1492, they haven't discovered other places around the globe. So Mallorca is in a great position, and this is Palma. It's a beautiful city, well protected, big harbor, and so this Jewish quarter is not big enough for all the Jews that are coming, so the king at the time decides to give them Cai Mayor, okay, the larger Jewish quarter. So at the same time, you have a small Jewish quarter and a larger Jewish quarter. We're going to be walking through the larger Jewish quarter today. What we're seeing today are places where a synagogue used to be, places where the Jewish quarter had important landmarks to it. Here is just a nice map showing where all the different synagogues they believe used to be. Okay, we're going to go visit a couple. This is a beautiful map showing the 3 cemeteries they believe were outside of the city wall. In Jewish religion, at that time, the cemeteries were going to always be outside the city wall, on a slope, and near water. Very similar to Montjuic. Have you guys heard of Montjuic in Barcelona? It means Mount of the Jews. They know that there was a cemetery there in medieval times. Okay, so here's our Jewish quarter and the cemeteries outside of it. There are so many incredible Jewish characters, people that are living, that are from Mallorca, like rabbis, philosophers, map makers, mathematicians, doctors, scientists. I mean, they contributed so much. What's that?
Columbus as well.
Maybe Christopher Columbus, exactly, might have Jewish roots. So here is a map by the father and son team, probably the most famous Jews from Mallorca. Their names? Right. Hafuda ben Cresques, Yehuda, son of Cresques, and his father is Cresques ben Abraham. Okay, a lot of people think that, oh, the Cresques family. No, not true. It's Cresques ben Abraham is the dad, and Yehuda ben Cresques is the son. And they made this map in 1375, and as you can see, Spain, Balearic Islands, Corsica, Sardinia, Italy, Greece, and all the way over here. What is it? Israel, right, is the country. And on all of his maps, he put a red slab of paint, a red, something marking this area with a red dash. What do you guys think that might represent for him on a map? Yes, the Red Sea. That's right. So for him, Yehuda Cresques is living in Mallorca, but he's always making a point to mention and to call out Israel, because for him, he's Jewish, and he always wants to be going back to Zion, going back to the land of his forefathers. And that's important when we start to talk about in the next room about forced conversions and how important religion is in that time frame. The one thing I will add is that there is a very famous rabbi named Rabbi Simon ben Sema-Duran. He has to leave after the attack of 1391. He goes to Algeria. He becomes a really big rabbi. I believe he's called the Tashbats, if I'm not mistaken, in Talmudic learning. And a lot of people know of this rabbi, but don't know that he's from Mallorca, because he went to Algeria, where he's become like the big rabbi of Algeria. But he's originally from Mallorca, which is very interesting. Let's all move to the other room, where we're gonna learn more about what happens next.
So that's, our little introduction to the incredibly, like the golden age of medieval Mallorca was really from 1229 to 1435, these 200 years of when the Jews were protected, and they had their own areas. They had 2 different Jewish quarters. They had about up to 7 synagogues at one point. This very famous rabbi, after the attack of 1391, he survived and he went to Algeria. That's the Tashbats that I was speaking about, and also his son, the Rashbats. And so they, many famous medieval Jews, like the father and son team I was speaking about, this incredible map, the Catalan Atlas from 1375, was made in Mallorca by the Jewish School of Map Making. And no one really knows about this stuff and is talking about it. So it's pretty cool to come to a holiday island, where everyone's on the beach all the time, and discover this incredibly rich history. It really blew me away. And then on top of it, to meet people who were returning to the faith of their ancestors after not practicing or having any kind of Jewish knowledge in their family for 600 years was just unbelievable. Where you look at people in the United States and all over the world where they're not passing their Judaism on from one generation to the next. And here were people trying so hard to hold on to it. So it really was an incredible story that jumped out and grabbed me and said, we got to learn about this. So going back to the slide, this was that letter that I spoke about in 418. That's when we know that Jews were there, because of a letter written by Bishop Severus. This is that map I was showing in the film, Catalan Atlas. There's the red the Red Sea marker right there. And this is what happened in 1391. There were terrible pogroms, basically, attacks that took over all over the Iberian Peninsula. Actually, in Barcelona, that was the end of the incredible Jewish quarter that was there, Jewish population, I should say. 1391 was unfortunately there. They never recovered from that attack. Where in other parts in Spain, it did recover until 1492, which is when all the Jews were expelled. And in Mallorca, it happened in 1391, there was a terrible attack, but then it kept going. Actually, the king at the time replaced Jews. He brought Jews that were fleeing from persecution from Portugal, gave them some tax benefit to move to Mallorca, if you can believe it, to continue the Jewish quarter, because I believe 300 men, women, and children were killed in 1391 out of a population of about 2,500. Where you have to remember the city at that time has a population of 40,000. So it was a sizable, they believe it got up to 10% of the Jewish population in Mallorca. And it kept going until the terrible year of 1435. Just a couple slides I don't want to brush over. In 1393, the Jews were forced to wear a rodea. Not many people know this, a red and yellow wheel that highlighted who was Jewish and who was not, because after 1391, many people decided to convert. Of course, think about it. Put yourself in your shoes. Do you want to be fearful that you're going to have another massacre take place, or are you going to convert and get all of the benefits of converting? So some held their guns and didn't convert. Others did. Those who didn't convert, they were labeled with a red and yellow wheel, which obviously reminds me of the yellow star that would take place in Nazis during the Holocaust. So 1435, you have this mass conversion. There was going to be another attack. And the rabbis at the time in Mallorca said, hey, please don't kill all of us. What if we convert? So hundreds of Jews go into this church that we're going to see right now on the film. And I actually am going to stop speaking because I say a lot of what I'm saying right now in the little clip. So let's go straight to that clip right now. And you can see this church that I'm referencing. It actually was known as Church of the Conversos. But again, I don't want to give away any of that. So we will watch this film right now. And I'll just slide to the beginning part of it. Let's see.
Now we're going to go on what I like to call a little scavenger hunt, because this walk and talk experience is called The Secret Jews of Mallorca. Okay? Secret because not a lot of people know about this history we just learned. Also because sometimes, where's the best place to keep a secret? Right under your nose, right? Because you don't see it, right? So that's what we're going to discover today. Sometimes there's so many things to learn about that if you didn't know where to look or that it was there, you wouldn't see it. And that's a lot of this history that we talked about, the secret Jews. I mean, that's a long time, 250 years under the Inquisition, still practicing Judaism, right underneath where the Inquisition was. Pretty interesting stuff. So come follow me. We're going to be trying to learn and discover the secrets of Jewish Mallorca. I stop here because I want to point out the beautiful church of Santa Eulalia, okay? This is where the mass conversion happened. In 1435, the entire Jewish population walked into that church as Jews, and they were baptized and came out as Catholics. That church was there before the cathedral. The cathedral was built from 1300 to 1600, more or less, and so this church was already there. Also very interesting, this church was called the Church of the Conversos for many years. Why? Because right on the left is Plateria, is Argenteria, is Silvermaker Street. And so all the Xuetas lived there. This was their church. This is where they would come. And I've heard from different Xuetas that I'm friends with today that people from all over the island would come just to watch the Xuetas pray, because they would pray so demonstratively, so passionately and emphatically to show the rest how good practicing Catholics they were. There's a saying, I'm told, in the Xueta culture or families, it's not worth going to church unless there's people inside it. Meaning the whole point to go to church is so other people can see you going to church, which is an interesting thing to think about. So Santa Eulalia used to be nicknamed Church of the Conversos. Just a quick note, because I didn't get to talk about it earlier. After this attack in 1391, which happened on August 2nd, okay, we just passed it, the Jews were forced to wear the rodea, okay, yellow and red circle, to identify who was Jewish and who was not. which of course when you think about what happened in Nazi Germany during the Holocaust with this Jewish star, that there is definitely a connection there. So I really want to make that statement very boldly, that I think it's important that we learn about history so we can hopefully prevent from it to repeat and not to happen again. And that's an example. I wonder if the German Jews at that time were forced to wear stars, if they had known that hundreds of years their ancestors were forced to wear red and yellow circles, I don't know, maybe more would have been saved because they knew what was coming. I don't know. I think this is a good example of how important it is to talk about history.
So that was, a way for you to learn about this 1435 mass conversion. Those are two reasons why I think our son Oren is with us today. Two important facts of why the Xuetas even exist. One, because 1435, that's when they were all forcibly converted and they lived on an island. They didn't have the means to get on a horse and go across the Pyrenees or go to Portugal. They were an island, so they were kept in the island. They had nowhere to go. They just went underground. And so 1492, when all the Jews were expelled from Spain, there were no Jews that left Mallorca because they had already been converted 60 years before that. So they stayed in Mallorca. It's like they never left. That's why when you go to New Mexico, you meet people with Jewish roots who are fervent Catholics doing Jewish things, because we know that they were conversos that went to Mexico. And then the Inquisition followed them to Mexico City. And the Inquisition was in Mexico City. So to get as far away from the Inquisition, they went to the high desert, which was the farthest part of that Spanish Empire at the time, which is today New Mexico, which is why you have these families that do Jewish things. And they did it because their mother did it, their grandmother did it, their great-grandmother did it. But now with YouTube and internet and DNA testing, we're starting to find out that these were families who have crypto-Jewish past. So how crazy is that? That families in Albuquerque are doing the same thing as families in Palma de Mallorca in Spain. It's just, for me, it really, as you can see, quite passionate about it. I think it's phenomenal to learn about this. Okay, what I want to do is quickly jump to the film. I'm going to show a little sneak peek of a very important scene that some of you who watched it will be reminded by this. It talks about the Great Escape. So you have crypto Jews from 1435 to 1670s, March 7th, 1688, is when there was this attempt to escape Mallorca, and they wanted to go to a place called Livorno. Livorno's in Italy, and it wasn't controlled by the Pope, it wasn't controlled by the Catholic Church. It was a merchant state like Venice. So many crypto Jews would go to Livorno and return back to being Jewish. In fact, in Mallorca, they have a saying, once you go to Livorno, no retorno. And it's this idea of like, oh, you're going so far away, it's like you're going to Livorno, you're never going to come back. And that is from this idea of the crypto Jews that would go to Livorno and to other places around the Mediterranean to escape the Inquisition grasp. No one really realizes this, but the Inquisition was instituted officially in 1488 and only abolished in 1834. You know, the famous Monty Python, no one expects the Inquisition. Well, nobody really thought that it was going to go on for so long. That's why so many Jews allowed themselves to convert, thinking that once the Inquisition was done and the Catholic monarchs, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, were out of here, that they would return back. Unfortunately, that was not the case. It's something that has been going on for centuries after that. So here is a clip of what happened on March 7, 1688, and then the following 3 years, the terrible events of 1691.
The old walls and are a perfect setting for a scavenger hunt or escape room, recalling the times when Jews had to hide from the Inquisition. On the evening of March 7th in the year 1688, one of the most dramatic episodes took place. A group of about 40 crypto Jews secretly boarded an English ship in order to flee the Inquisition. Unfortunately, a storm was brewing at sea and caused the ship to never leave port, and they had to return to the walled city where they were reported and captured. They were tortured and kept in the secret prisons for 3 years, and in 1691, 4 autos de fe, or public executions by way of burning at the stake, were held, in which 88 people were convicted. 37 of them condemned and killed. Three of them, Caterina Taronji and Rafaelette Benito Taronji and Rabbi Rafael Vaz, were burned alive in front of 30,000 people for not giving up their Judaism publicly. It is what is remembered in the Mallorquin language as the Cremadissa. It is after this terrible event that the descendants of the Jewish conversos will begin to be called Xuetas. It's a real story. It happened here, and it's that night, and you're trying to get together, and you have to do a couple tasks and certain things before you can escape, get out of the city, and get on a boat and go to freedom because the Inquisition is here and they're coming after you. Cool. You're trying to get out for your life, and you come out of it a little sad, a little depressed, because no matter which way, the story doesn't end well for you.
Yeah. So now you're going to hear some of the last names of the Xuetas. These are some of the 15.
Fuster marti miro pico pinia.
The terrible events of the Cremadissa are narrated in the book.
So that is what happened in 1688, the failed boat escape, and then 1691, the terrible events that you just heard about. And it was after that date that this derogatory term, the Xuetas, came about. I mean, after that date, 1755, they took down the San Benitos, which had all the names up, and only refurbished some of them. And that's a big deal because today, there's only these 15 names, but if you actually go in the Inquisition records, you'll see over 300 names. Vidal, Moya, Sureda, Salom, Abraham. I mean, there's so many names in Mallorca today that have these Jewish roots, but no one treats them differently because only the 15 that were hanging from 1755 till 1834 were kept into the local consciousness. So, we're coming up to about, 10 minutes till the end of the program. I did want to open up for any questions that might have come up. I know this was very history focused. So if people have questions about, current events today and what's it like being in Mallorca today and how many Xuetas have returned now and et cetera, happy to answer those. So feel free to write in the chat. And meanwhile, I'm going to share the screen again and show you all of the Xueta last names. So while you're thinking of your questions, please take a look at the PowerPoint that we have here, and you can see and hear the names. So yeah, 330 last names that went down to 15 in the year 1755. And here are the last names being sung by my friend Manny Hoffman, who's comes from a family of Chazans. He's French, Sephardic. Really, really beautiful.
Aguilo, Bonin, Cortés, Fortesa, Fuster, Martí, Miro, Pico, Pinia. Pomar, segura, taronji, valenti, maieriola, vais.
So those are the 15 last names, and I believe only one of them, Valenti, there are no longer descendants, but everyone else, the other 14, there are still people today in Mallorca with these last names, about 20,000 people with these last names. And it's amazing. When you open up their family tree, you'll see that they've always married within these same families. So I'm going to go ahead to take some of the questions right now. And let's see, we have from Lizzie, thinking about the process of making the film, what was something that inspired you to tell this story using this format? So I come from a filmmaking background. I was producing TV commercials for so long, and I always knew myself as a producer, not as a scriptwriter or a director even. And so when I started doing these tours, I always said, if anyone knows Steven Spielberg's second cousin, twice removed, please let him know that we got this incredible story. We need to make a documentary film. And then I thought to myself, why don't I just make it? I have this background and I'm sure we could put it together. Boy, that was a tricky decision to make because, we had to raise funds for it, which was not easy. But I do believe the process happened very, very organically. I met Ofer Lazowicki and Felipe Wolokita, two incredible Israeli filmmakers who made the film. They actually came from Israel. We were able to raise funds, and they went and did interviews with all of the members of the Jewish community. Mainly, a lot of them were Xueta. And so I was a part of this film because I was a member of the board of the community. So I wanted to understand what other people were thinking because not everyone has the same opinion. And you see that in the film. You see conflicting opinions come out. And I felt the only way to get this information out was by two foreigners, Felipe and Ofer, coming to do these interviews. And they did an incredible job, as you will see if you haven't seen the film yet. Martin asks, where did you obtain this historical Jewish information? Example, Jewish Historical Society Mallorca, JCCs, whatnot. All the books, and I will share that with you right now so you can see some of the books that I have been able to find this information. So there's really only 3 books written originally in English. One of them is The Xuetas of Mallorca, written by Baruch Brownstein in 1936. A rabbi and a historian from JTS, actually, Jewish Theological Seminary, comes to Mallorca and Madrid and opens up the Inquisition records and wrote this incredible Bible, is what I consider it to be, about the Xuetas. You also have Angela Selke's The Conversos of Mallorca, written in 1986. And then this is a fictional account, In the Last Blue, which talks about the failed boat escape. A fictional book by Carmen Riera. It won many, many prizes. That's why many people in Spain know about the Xuetas from this book. In fact, they were trying to make a narrative film, like a $20 million budget movie about this that unfortunately did not get made. And so I have a bibliography, Martin, that I'd be happy to share with you as well, so you can read these books as well. I do want to tell you that in 2011, this is a big deal, everyone. Rabbi Nissim Karelitz, Zichron Livracha, he passed away during COVID. He was the big Rebbe of Bnei Barak. He said, and the New York Times posted about this or wrote an article about it, that if you are Xueta from your mother's side, you do not have to convert. You can do what's called a return, which is pretty much the same thing. You have to study, you have to go in front of a Beit Din, you have to go in a mikvah. It's pretty much the same process. But when you get your te'udah, your certificate, it does not say that you're converting to the Jewish people. It actually can say that you're returning to the faith of your ancestors, which is very important to them because they were basically discriminated against and treated as second-class citizens for hundreds of years, their ancestors, that they felt that they never left. Why should they convert to something that they already were? So they are doing something called a process of return, which many places around Latin America are instituting as well. Here you have our famous Limud conference that in April 2018, we thought 15 people were going to come. You can see over 90 people showed up. And the following year, over 150 people showed up. So that was very, very exciting. And this was our way of revival. This is a way of like opening Judaism for anyone and everyone that wanted to learn about Jewish culture, Jewish food, movies, books. It was our way of kind of opening up the community, which was always very closed because the community today was started by British expats who, by the way, in early 2000s, when some of the Xuetas started to come to the synagogue and wanted to learn a little bit about their past, they got closed at the door because the British Jews that were living in Mallorca had never heard of the Xuetas before. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And then over the course of time, they finally understood that there's a group of people here that were treated as Jews. They come from the Jews. They have DNA showing that. They have genetic diseases showing that because of this endogamy. So they were allowed to come in, but not counting as a minion until some of them, would eventually do a halachic, by Jewish law, return process or conversion. So a couple other questions. This is great. Was there much about Jewish history info on Mallorca before you did the deep dive? No, not really. I mean, excuse me, let me rephrase that. In Catalan, a ton. In the local language, absolutely. In Spanish, the same. In English, not at all. I mean, 3 books in all of history written in English. Was there much info about Jewish history before you did the deep dive? Okay, just answer that. Have you seen connections with this history of isolation in marriage with miscegenation laws in the Spanish colonies and in the United States. So I'm not quite 100% sure what I understand by that.
Our miscegenation, like intermarried laws, like was there ever an issue with these descendants marrying non-conversos or like non people in the 14 families, right?
If I could just
Please.
clarify that I was looking at this and there's some talk about the roots of the anti-miscegenation laws in the Spanish colonies, that they were based on these same type of laws where our community was not allowed to marry other people in Spain. And so I was wondering, when you were going through this, did you see any connections, or did anyone connect the history that was happening there with what was happening? Like when you look at, say, there's some one dissertation that was written in LSU, I think it was in the 80s or the 90s, that was pointing out a history of these same kind of laws happening in Louisiana, where a person had to prove that they were Jewish, and then how those were expanded to other populations in Louisiana. So I was just wondering, did you see any connections with that, or was there any discussion about how some of that experience, as people say were fleeing, how maybe some of these things also spread to other communities?
Right. No, it's a really good question. Unfortunately, I haven't seen that myself. This is more new information about Louisiana, for example, that I had not studied. What I can say is that I have seen this marrying within the same families phenomenon, whatever you want to call it, in other countries. Like when I went to Brazil and I went into the Sertão, like the desert outside of Recife, northeastern Brazil, where they call themselves marranos, actually, which is, again, a derogatory term, but I said, hey, you guys shouldn't be using that. They're like, no, we are Marranos. We're proud Marranos. I'm like, okay. I mean, this is your, it's your identity. It's your word. Who am I to judge at all? But I've met families who would only marry certain families, and they knew which families to marry or not, and they said, no, you can't marry that person's son. He's not one of us. You can't marry that daughter. He's not one of, or her daughter, whatever. They're not one of us. So I have seen that in Colombia, in Ecuador, in Mexico. Some people have told me about this in Puerto Rico. I actually just finished my latest short film about Puerto Rico. That's why I'm taking a group there in March, that I would love, Lizzie, to speak to you about. Actually, my cousin Danny Shub, that's who connected us, who's Jewish from Puerto Rico. That's why I'm even here, thanks to him. So that's a short film that I'm excited to share. And I'm also doing a film in Puebla, Mexico. Right now, we're editing it. We just filmed in February. And that's more about emerging communities, some evangelical Christians. Some believe they have Jewish roots, some don't, that want to convert to Judaism, Orthodox Judaism, and the local Jewish communities are not receiving them, are not accepting them, because mainly Latin America, they have something called a takana, which says no conversion whatsoever. And so they are basically learning online. They're finding rabbis in Israel, or they're doing Judaism 101 on YouTube. And man, when you go to visit these communities, blow you away. I mean, the passion and devotion that they have for Hashem, for Torah, it's absolutely incredible. In fact, Lizzie, if it's okay, I would love to just pause for a second, show a 1-minute trailer about the next series that I'm doing about all over Latin America, emerging communities. And I know there's 1 or 2 questions, which I'm happy to take as well. So without further ado, I will just jump right to a 1-minute trailer so everyone can see what's to come. And if you want to learn more information, we're at reemergeproject.com, so you can find us there. All right, here is our trailer about the next, like the expanded story that some of you were asking about. So hopefully this will be interesting for some of you.
My name is Dani Rotstein, and I'm a documentary filmmaker. I want to tell you about an extraordinary phenomenon taking place in Latin America today. I actually had to go there myself to see if it was true. There are different Christian groups interested in converting to Judaism.
Pues a mí si me dices compruébame que eres judío, a lo mejor no te lo puedo comprobar, pero te puedo mostrar el corazón. Mi corazón es judío al 100%.
Mucha gente tiene mucha sed de judaísmo acá, quiere conocer
pero no hay una puerta abierta para eso.
Comencé a investigar mucho sobre el judaísmo. Fui a la comunidad judía y me dijeron que ellos no podían ayudarme.
Because people have been rejected by the established Jewish communities, they're going and forming their own. Now you have emerging communities going away from traditional communities. That's crazy.
Esta comunidad son todos conversos, menos yo.
Son dos tipos de exigencia. Aquí nos piden más observancia y allá nos piden mejor posición social.
Our plan is to create a documentary series that will shine a light on these unknown stories, highlighting their different hopes, experiences, and challenges.
Me decían, pero piénsalo bien, vas a ser discriminado por latino e agora vas a ser discriminado por judío. Ándate daqui, todavía sé feliz.
A sinagoga tem que estar aberta, a sinagoga não é museu, tem que estar aberta. Eu acho errado. Errado.
Right now, we are looking for producing partners to help prepare the project and secure funding so we can return to Latin America to tell this story completely.
Una de las cosas que tenemos que luchar es para sacar la palabra emergente de las comunidades. Ya emergió.
So there you have it. I'll leave it on screen for a second if anyone wants to take a picture or write it down. Reemergeproject.com. We are hopefully going to finish our fundraising to make the second installment, which is about Mexico. The first one, Puerto Rico, is done. So I'm happy to share that at the next event, next virtual event with you, Lizzie. So people are saying already, thanks so much for the great program. Thank you so much. It's so nice. I mean, Martin, you asked if I found that Jews could leave or departed for other parts of Europe or immigrated to the United States. It was very hard back then. I mean, it's in medieval times, you basically left everything to leave your place of birth. And also, a lot of people ask me, well, if they were discriminated against, why didn't they go somewhere else? Well, then they would be discriminated wherever they were going because they were not from that area. So it wasn't an easy thing to just pick up and leave. Did you find that the Vatican position on the Spanish Inquisition in Spain and Mallorca does make you wonder what was the drive or impetus to round up the Jews? Well, for many, many years, the Vatican and the Catholic Church was saying that the Jews were responsible for killing Jesus. So it was like this religious anti-Semitism. Then anti-Semitism morphed into a race thing with the Nazis and with Adolf Hitler. And then not to get too political, but I agree. I believe today anti-Zionism is absolutely, parts of it has morphed into anti-Judaism, anti-Semitism, and that people are using the fact that there's a state to be, expressing their Jew hate. So you definitely see, and with the Xuetas, thank you, this is a good point. The fact that the Xuetas were discriminated against for having Jewish roots from 600 years ago, even in 1960, I met someone who's in the film who married, he's Xueta, and he married a woman who's not Xueta from a small town in Mallorca. And at the wedding, 3 of the uncles came dressed in black as a way of saying how upset they were that their niece was marrying someone with Jewish roots with this last name, just because of a last name, even though he was very Catholic and goes to church, just because of a last name. 1960, people were upset about this, and more stories that are shown in the film and that you could hear about and read about. What does that say? It says that anti-Semitism is a virus that morphs, and that even the Xuetas, who don't know anything about being Jewish at all and don't practice it, don't show it, just because they have this last name, were treated terribly. And it shows that hate and intolerance is irrational. It has no rhyme, no reason. And it's something that you're not born with. You don't born hating anyone. You learn it. So people teach people how to hate. And that's part of my mission in life, is to teach people how to love, how to respect, how to be open, how to be tolerant, how to love diversity. I love Jewish diversity. I love showing all the different kinds of Jews that there are in the world. And this is part of my mission. And really, really grateful for the opportunity to share my work with all of you. And I hope that you can share this to more people. If you have that link to watch the film, share it as much as possible between now and then. And if anyone wants to learn more about the trips that I'm running and join us, that would be happy to share that as well. Lizzie, thank you so much. Going back to you.
Thank you so much, Dani. This was such an amazing dive into the Mallorcan Jewish community, Xuetas, and just a taste of all the great things you're doing is amazing. And yeah, let's reconnect You're getting even closer to the American South. Maybe one day you'll get all the way to New Orleans, that tippy
That's
top
right.
part of the Spanish.
I'm flying over.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much for your time and expertise today. Please watch, please, the screener. Like it's an amazing film, everyone. If you haven't seen it yet, register for the screener. It's on our website. Donnie put a way to contact him in the chat. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Just a last little reminder, next week is our final installation of our Sit a Spell series with Southern Jewish mayors. And that's 6 p.m. on the 6th, Thursday the 6th. We have a variety of programs coming up for the fall, and the best way to follow us at the museum is to register for our newsletter. So if you're not getting it already, please do. And with that, I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. Stay cool, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.